Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your hosts, Noor Kyle, along with...
The other one of your hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
And we want to thank you for joining us, everyone who's sitting with us right now live, and those of you who are going to be tuning in on the YouTube later, thank you for being here. It's been a hectic week for us in the United States. Most of you may be aware of what's going on here. It depends on what kind of terminology you want to use, but we would be prepared to use the word insurrection to describe what happened in our national capital this week. So
that an attempted coup d'etat.
Yes. Yep. Domestic terrorism, even. So these are big words. They carry a lot of weight. And they bring up a lot of feelings. So tonight we wanted to discuss something that is kind of an undercurrent in everything that's going on. And we will get to that. But before we do have to do our typical spiel before we get started. Would you like to handle that, Mushtaq?
All right. I will spiel at you. If this is your first time watching this on YouTube, welcome. And let me invite you to hit that old like button and the little bell so that you can be informed every time we put out our incredibly engaging content, which is usually about once a week, maybe more. We're going to try and do more this year. And make a comment. We would love your comments. Your comments are what drive this channel. Either your discussions with us if you join us live, which you can do. Follow the link below in the description to the Nine-Sided Circle Forum and join it. Answer the questions, because if you don't answer the questions, you don't get on the forum, because I need to know that you're not a bot. And answering the questions is a whole lot better than going through one of those stupid CAPTCHA routines. But then you can get the link to join us and talk with us. And we love it when that happens.
We really do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the best thing ever.
Yep.
And excuse me. What else?
Well, for those who are interested, we do one-on-one sessions too as well. And you can get in touch with us on Facebook if you're interested in that.
Yes,
both of us do
one-on-one consultation.
Yes.
You can consult with us.
And you can work with either me or Mushtaq.
Or both of us, if you're really, really crazy.
But either way, it's something we enjoy doing. And however you get in touch with us, we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you. Okay. So with all of that said.
Oh, there's one other thing to say.
Okay. Go for it.
See if I can get into focus. No, I can't. So the reason that I'm blurring is because we're getting poorer and poorer by the day. And the only way that we survive is through your donations. We do not want to charge for anything more than we absolutely have to. We want to make our content as free and as available as possible. So if you are so inclined, there's another link down in the description where you can make a small donation or a large donation. We will accept anything between $1 and $1 million to the Nine-Sided Circle. And all funds go to supporting the Nine-Sided Circle and making sure the Nine-Sided Circle actually works.
Exactly. Yep. Because we do as much as we can on a shoestring, but it ain't free nonetheless.
Yep.
So there you have it. Thank you for listening to our spiel. And now we can get to the juicy stuff.
Yes. What is the juicy stuff tonight, Noor?
Well, the title of our talk tonight has been Dating the Goddess Maya. And we're going to get into exactly what we mean when we talk about Maya. And we are going to discuss Life beyond illusion. First of all, what is the illusion? We're going to be discussing that. How does it impact in our day-to-day life? We are all kind of swimming in it. So much talk. Why don't you lead us into that?
All right. Why don't I lead us into that? Let me see if I can get us focused.
Maybe you need to take a little, maybe it's a little smudged.
I don't think it's a little smudged. There we go. It's
Okay.
just being electronic.
Being a
So,
butt.
all of the big Advaita guys talk about reality and illusion, right? And if you listen to some of them, it makes you think that this world that we're living in is the illusion. Now, you can test that theory by going over to any convenient wall and pounding your head on it a few times. What happens when you do that? Your head hurts. You get some feedback saying this wall is real. That's not what illusion means. The illusion that we live in is not in the external world, it's in the internal world. Another name for illusion, and a lot of people are not going to like this, another name for illusion is belief. No belief is true. All beliefs are illusionary. We define belief as an idea you hold to be true without evidence. Civilization is built on belief. Civilization is built on a foundation of not even sand, a foundation of smoke. And human beings are kind of hardwired to hold on to these illusionary beliefs no matter what. In the face of all evidence to the contrary, we hold on to our beliefs. And this is the illusion that we live in. We see this all the time. I mean, think about who here remembers the Heaven's Gate cult. These were a bunch of flying saucer people. The good space aliens were going to come and take them away. They were around for years. And finally, they ended up all committing suicide willingly, happily, because they thought that the saucer was arriving with Hale-Bopp comet and they were going to take them all up, but they couldn't take their bodies. They could only take their souls. So they all literally took poison, put plastic bags over their heads, and they died for this belief. And you know what? There was no flying saucer. They did not get taken off with the good space brothers.
Mm.
You know how I know that? The
How do
good
you know
space
that?
brothers told me so. They said, those guys were a bunch of idiots. That's not how we work.
Which trip was this?
Don't ask.
So we have a question from Sharif. She asks, what is the difference between belief and faith? Or is there a difference?
There is a big difference between belief and faith in the way that I define them. I am all for faith. Faith is the knowingness that all things are working towards the good, you might say. It's like when I am a person that is strong in faith. And that's, you know, when I look at inside, I have a knowingness that I am connected to the divine, and my actions try and align themselves with that. To me, that is faith. As Granny Weatherwax would say, I's got faith. What do you got faith in, Granny? I ain't got faith in nothing. I just got faith. And if you don't know who Granny Weatherwax is, you have been living an impoverished life and you don't even know it. But that's the thing. Faith is not faith in. Faith is, it's hard to describe, but it is the sense of connection with the real. And people might say, oh, that's illusion too. And maybe it is. I can't tell that it is, whereas I can tell that my beliefs are illusionary. And that's part of what we want to talk about tonight is what do you do with a belief when you find one?
So how do you sense the difference for yourself?
So when I find something that I have as a belief, and you've seen me do this just recently, dealing with the written word. I have
Right.
beliefs around the written word. I
Mm.
grew up listening to my grandmother, my father's mother, say over and over again, grandson, words on paper lie. Now, she was Native American, so she had a certain amount of reason to say this. So, what I do with that is I literally challenge that. How do I know that this is true? Do I know of any examples of words on paper being true rather than being lies? What is the emotions attached to this? When I say I have faith, I look at the faith that I feel in the universe, and I can't even say, I can say, how do I know this is true? And the answer is in the same way that I know that my being is true, because my faith is connected, is an expression of my being. It's not a belief in something. It's not A is B. It's just A. A.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I think that's fair enough. This stuff is hard to talk about, but I think
Yeah.
if we dig into context, that may help people understand better. So yeah, let's continue. Let's go deeper.
So back to Heaven's Gate. They had a belief. They acted on it. They all ended up dead. Now, every religion I know of is based on beliefs. So weird when Palin does that. I can see her up there, and it's like she's walking off into the distance and goes into the clouds, and then she comes back. It's kind of spooky. I might believe that she is actually walking through the clouds. So, religions historically have asked us to believe things without evidence. So, the world was created in 7 days. And for 3 of those, there weren't any days, or something like that. There was a flood for 40 days and 40 nights that filled the entire planet with water, and everything drowned except these dudes on a ship with their menagerie. And all life that we have today is repopulated from that incredibly small gene pool. And people are asked to believe these things. And I'm picking on Christianity right now because I live in America, and that's the majority religion, and most people know this stuff. Xenu brought the souls of all of these beings to the planet Earth, stuffed them in volcanoes, and then exploded nuclear bombs on them. That's a belief. The thing is, there is certainly no evidence of nuclear explosions in volcanoes on this planet that we have ever discovered. There is no space planes that look like DC-10s that can fly from some planet a million light years away to this one that we've ever seen. And yet, there are a whole bunch of people in the world who believe that this is literally true and act as if it's true. And that's the problem. When you act as if your beliefs are true, especially without testing them, you create a disconnect from reality. And that's the reality and the illusion that is really talked about in Advaita and all of these other non-dual groups, whether they know it or not, is the difference between that which is real, which is here we are in this very moment, and we can know some things about it. And, oh, the frog god created the world out of a giant dung beetle's ball and populated it with its tadpoles, which grew up to be humans. Right? So my axiom is no belief is true. And I try to live by that for myself. You guys, I don't care as long as you don't believe that I should be burned at the stake for thinking no belief is true. You can believe whatever you want for the most part. But that's another problem with belief. Belief is so tenuous, so ephemeral, so non-real that the only way that it can propagate itself is by destroying anything that goes against that particular belief. Look at Christianity versus whatever they labeled as heretics through the centuries. Blasphemer, burn them, kill them, stone them. People who know the truth do not need to kill somebody because they disagree with them. Like the sign says, beliefs don't kill, people with beliefs kill. We've seen that in our own country just this week. There's a bunch of people who have these completely unfounded beliefs that the election was somehow stolen from them. Zero evidence to back this up. Understand this, no evidence. If there were evidence, the courts, some of which were run by judges appointed by Donald, Trump himself, might have noticed. But in no court case, with the exception of one case for some 126 ballots that were probably brought into Pennsylvania after the time limit and then were disqualified, except for that one case, the other 50 cases that have gone before every court from state courts to the Supreme Court have all been tossed out because there's nothing to back them up. And yet these people insist that their belief is true with a complete lack of evidence. And I will tell you this, if there were actual evidence of voter fraud, I would be out there with them protesting because that's bullshit. But nobody has showed me a thing that says, here's the evidence. That's one thing. But that's the question for any belief. What is the evidence that this is true? Does that make sense to you? What is the evidence?
I'd like to hear what people are thinking about. Who'd like to jump in? I'll call on you if I gotta. John, what do you think? What's on your mind? What's coming up for you?
I was just thinking about beliefs and how they relate to our identity, like how we can become so closely identified with a belief that it actually becomes part of our self. We consider it ourself. So that's why, it seems so hard for people to, move out of certain beliefs, is because that has become them to some extent. And
I
Right.
think
they
you
give that
hit
up.
the nail on the head, man.
Yeah.
The self, the identity is built on beliefs. That is the building blocks of your identity, is a bunch of beliefs.
Yeah. And it'd be very easy to assume, just because we don't have, what we consider wacky beliefs, that we don't have beliefs that are, that we'd just be just as loath to part with as.
Yeah. John, I hate to tell you this. I know a lot of your beliefs. They're all wacky.
And wacky is not a bad thing. Yeah.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. Some of them are out there, but doggone it, that Patterson Gimlin footage is real. So I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, John. So we have a question from Mr. Keem.
Yes.
Back to belief and faith. So faith would have some kind of evidence?
The evidence of faith is in your experience. Again, it's not faith in something. I don't have faith that the sun will rise, right? I don't have faith that God is watching over us. I just have faith. And it's hard to explain. This is something that I wish I had better words for, and I should really work on it so that I could explain it better. It is not faith in anything, because that's when it becomes belief. It's just a knowingness that everything is flowing along in the universe pretty much in the way it's supposed to, in the greatest sense possible.
I think that gets closer to it.
Yeah.
Yep. So Zainab asks, is faith iman in Arabic?
I believe so, yes.
I do think so too, yeah. Okay, how about anyone else? Paylan, what comes up for you in this conversation?
I mean, it reminds what John had just said, which is that belief is tied to the self, and then what Mishak had said, which is that the self-identity is built on top of beliefs. What came up was simply just no wonder how dangerous it is to try to nudge someone else's beliefs, or how ineffective and how they might or definitely can snap back at someone for trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think things that threaten a person's beliefs can create a very primal sense of, real life or death threat.
Oh, yeah. Some of the most horrendous crimes in the history of the world have been caused by somebody having their belief system threatened.
Yeah, it's activating. Yeah, it can be anyway.
Threatened or merely challenged, or how big of a difference or how wide of a spectrum can that be?
You need to speak up a little bit more. I can barely hear you.
Sorry. Having one's beliefs threatened or having one's beliefs challenged? At what point does the threshold gets crossed where it's like a person just goes berserk?
I suspect that's going to be different for each person and each belief.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, all challenges are threats. For some people, no challenges are threats, or very few challenges are threats.
Yep. Dave, how about you?
How about me? Well, I agree completely, and have experience separating these things out. I've been a militant atheist and a toe-dipping agnostic, and now I would say I definitely have real faith, non-notional hope, and all these things, but I don't like trying to explain it for the reasons mentioned. I don't like trying to proselytize or preach to anyone about it. I
Yeah.
have this, and I also have evidence, and I'm keeping a lot of it behind doors because of some of the stuff that's mentioned here, because I want it all to happen at once, because there is different orders of evidence too.
Yeah.
So that's what
And thinking about how to describe faith, I have all of the evidence I need to know that my faith is real. Most of it wouldn't make sense to a lot of people. And you've all heard the saying, be still and know that I am God, right? That's not quite faith. If the phrase was, be still and know the Tao, that would be closer to faith. So in dealing with beliefs, you must first of all be willing to challenge your own beliefs. Nobody can challenge your beliefs as good as you can. And the question is, how do I know that this is true? That's the number one question. How do I know that this is true? God created woman from the rib of man. How do I know that this is true? When I was a kid, I had people telling me that boys only had one less rib than girls because God created woman from the rib of a man. And it's like, dude, I can count. I have a medical text at home. I can look at male and female anatomy and go, oh, there's the same number of ribs there, you complete moron. But if I did that, I would have gotten into even more fights on the schoolyard than I already had. So for once in my life, I was smart enough to just go, oh, that's interesting. So when you're 7 years old, it is probably okay to believe in fairy tales. I mean, you know, all men have one less rib than women is like how the rhinoceros got its wrinkles, or how the leopard got its spots, or any of those other stories that we tell each other. How did the elephant get its trunk? Right? One elephant had its trunk pulled out by a crocodile and it got really, really long before it escaped. Therefore, all elephants have trunks. Think about that for a second. And yet, there was a time when people actually believed that shit.
Cute story, bro. Yeah. Yep.
Then I guess a different question, which is, how is it that we, all of us, so easily fall or get blinded by the beliefs? Fall for or get blinded by?
I think we're kind of hardwired to it. It has to do probably, and this is a hypothesis on my part, probably has to do with early on having to learn things very quickly. So we're walking along the trail with our friend Nog, and the snake bites him and he dies. And we see this. And we form the belief that snake bites will kill you. Therefore, we thump every snake we see with a stick, no matter whether it's poisonous or not, for the rest of our lives because of that one experience. Because it's safer to do that than to discover whether or not all snakes of all species are poisonous. A lot of our stuff goes back that far.
So we have that. And
have
then
that.
we have the stuff in the short term, meaning in our own lifetimes, perhaps from childhood, and the fixations that we've developed from our childhood experiences. And we build narratives about, quote unquote, what is true around those as well.
And most of those narratives are designed to do a couple of things. One is to allow us to escape pain. That's always important. People don't like to be in pain. Pain motivates us. And the other is group bonding.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. That was what I was going to suggest next. Yep.
Yeah. It's how you get religions and politics. You create stories that everybody agree have to be true without checking. And then it becomes the game rule of your in-group.
So Aaron says, ideological myths people create about what they're told in order to bond and be relevant. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we have those all the time. To this moment, we are engaging in myth creating, myth building, in myth reification. So I think that's very true.
And here's where the illusion comes in. Your beliefs will seem more real than reality. And I will tell you this. If we were all sitting together in the same room right now, I would have selected one of you. And while we were talking, I would have surreptitiously put you in a trance and given you a post-hypnotic suggestion that you would not be able to see one of the other people in the room. And then I would bring you out of the trance and fire the post-hypnotic suggestion. And you know what? You would not be able to see that person. You would think everybody else is crazy for saying, say, I put Palin in a trance and I say, Dave does not exist. And everybody's saying, no, there's Dave. And she's going, are you crazy? There's nobody there. That's an empty space. And as weird as that sounds, I used to do that every month when I was teaching hypnotherapy. It's called a negative hallucination. And your mind will just delete that person from your reality because you believe that it's true. I can do the other direction and have you see something be there that isn't there. And you'll be insisting that there is a person standing over in the corner. And everybody's going, there's nobody there. And you go, no, they're there. That's how easy it is to form a belief. It's a little scary, huh?
To the
If
point
you're
where
not a little scared by that, you should be.
it actually alters your perception of the senses.
Yes. Your senses go through your brain. You do not see the world. You see the world that is formed in your mind from the inputs that are being given you. And it's really easy to delete something. You notice how Palin just went dark? Mustakim asked, could it happen to anyone? Yes, it could happen to anyone. It happens to people all the time. All the time that you're looking for something and you can't see it and you can't see it and it's right in front of your face, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, there it is. What else is that other than not seeing what's in front of your face? And I know everybody here has had that experience at least once. So beliefs are usually positive hallucinations. You think something is real when it's not. Sometimes they're negative hallucinations. You think people who have a certain skin color are not actually human. That's a negative hallucination. Yes, John, are you about to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, the formation of a kind of trance state, the repeated, words and thoughts over and over kind of creates a focus, which might um, create a negative, kind of everything else that's not that becomes, not seen or no longer existing. Kind of.
Yep. And an example of that is Trump working with his people. Now, Trump was trained by Tony Robbins. A lot of people don't talk about that, but he used to hang out with Tony Robbins all the time. He learned his stuff. And when you listen to Trump talk, yes, he sounds like an idiot sometimes, but he's using hypnotic patterns in his languaging. The way he repeats things, the way he emphasizes things, the way he steps back from something and then steps right back into it. That's all basic hypnosis stuff. He is putting his audience into certain trances and giving them a set of beliefs that they then, the ones who are most susceptible to it, act as if it's real. And the ones who are susceptible to it are the ones that he can build rapport with. That shit don't work on me because I am so not in rapport with him, it isn't even funny. But for some poor dude out in the Farm Belt or the Rust Belt who has been shit on by the government for most of his life, who has been ignored and neglected, and who's lost his family farm and all of this kind of stuff, he's going to listen to that. And though Trump will not do a damn thing for him, he will be convinced that Trump will, which is kind of what happened 4 years ago. And then Trump started a trade war with China, and the American farmer got screwed. Too bad. I don't want to seem to be picking on Donald Trump too much. He's just such a good example of how to create belief systems. But let's find other ones because I don't want to give him too much airtime.
It's hard to pass up the QAnon thing just because it's such a.
Oh yeah, QAnon is like these incredible. I mean, here you have people who believe that there is a child sex ring being run by Hillary Clinton in the basement of a pizza parlor that doesn't actually even have a basement. There's an example of something that people are holding to be true without evidence. Nobody bothered to look and go, oh, there is no basement here. Remember the guy who goes busting into this place with a rifle to free the kids? And it's just a family pizza parlor. It's nothing more than that. Yeah, the guy who owns it is gay, so he's fair game for the right wing. But it's just a family pizza parlor. There is no basement. There are no kids. There is nothing going on there. And yet these people held a conviction so hard that there was something going on there that they were willing to invade this building with firearms to, quote, free the children.
Well, from a practical sense, you wonder, like, that person walks into that building, how is he perceiving, especially the workers there, the managers there? He's not looking at them as regular people. He's looking at them as evil, these evil.
We're really lucky that he didn't just cut loose on the place.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think his hallucination wasn't necessarily like, it's my job to go kill people or anything like that. I think it was legitimately this hallucination that he was on a rescue mission.
Yeah, and he was going to go save the children, so he wasn't focused on killing people.
Yeah, thank God.
A really good thing.
But of course, yeah, he must have been seeing in the people who worked there what he was looking for, nonetheless. just because of the projections that we make when we're in these hallucinations. And that's a scary thought. So we do have, yeah, thank you for that example, John. That was good. Aaron was saying that the negative hallucinations around losing things happens to him daily. That's relatable.
It happens to me a lot.
Yeah. Mr. Keem asks, how to avoid it or reduce it? Because it must be difficult to correct oneself by oneself.
Well, it all starts with yourself. It all starts with you asking yourself the question, what can I know is true? And then holding that question up to every single thing that you believe. But it works better if you are working with a small group of like-minded people who are willing to help you see your beliefs, and you are willing to help them see their beliefs, and you're all dedicated enough to the idea of liberation from the illusion that you don't kill each other. That is the most efficient way I know. And those of you who hang out with me in person and privately, you all know that I ask you questions like this. Paylan gets asked this sort of thing 3 times a week. And she still comes back.
Yeah, it's not easy work to do, especially with those you love most rather than your favorite internet punching bags, let's say, because you know they're going to react to it. You know it's likely to affect them in some way.
Yeah.
So then you think about, how do I couch this in such a way that it's not going to, you know, create this sense of affronting in them, you know? And it's kind of a delicate balance between being truly honest in support of that person and also figuring out a way to talk to them in a way that they're going to hear. That's not easy. That's not always easy anyway.
Well, in the end, we're most responsible for ourselves, right?
Right, of course, yes. And then that means that we need to apply the skills that we might apply to someone else to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to bludgeon ourselves either in such a way that it becomes negative talk, for example. You know, like, that's so stupid. How could you believe that? Like, that's not going to be
See,
useful.
that's so stupid is also a belief.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's where, you know, spending time, you know, with yourself doing the practices, you see your thoughts that are kind of manifestations of some of these beliefs that aren't necessarily the beliefs themselves. You don't really see them show up. They're kind of like running in the background.
Yep.
But the thoughts and the feelings are coming up that are related to those. So, yeah, I mean, as you know, begin to see that more and more, and I think you get a little bit more objectivity with your own beliefs, you definitely see other people's programs, beliefs running a little bit more clearly than you did in the past.
Definitely, yeah. And the things that come up within us, like our own emotional responses, if we become more attuned to watching those kind of rise up within us while we're watching the news or reading a book or something like that, we can just observe them and be like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that's coming up for me. And we can, without building a whole narrative around it, we can use it as kind of like following deer tracks, you know, just following it back and seeing what the source of that might be in terms of the context that we're dealing with. And if we're noticing something is particularly triggering for us, instead of running from it and reacting to it, if we're able to be well resourced doing breath practice or taking a break from whatever it is, then we can reapproach it and think, what is it about this that seems to be stirring things up for me? What am I assuming or believing about it or projecting onto it that might be contributing to what I'm experiencing. It takes practice to do that. It often does. But especially when we're engaging with intentionally inflammatory media, like so many of us are kind of forced to do right now, this becomes a critical practice.
Yeah, the internet, basically, you will never wake up anyone over the internet. Won't happen. John will remember back in the days when we had the Sufi Studies news group.
Hey, that's still out there.
Actually, it's been closed down. Whoever was running it, I forget whether it was Amazon or Google or whoever had it, closed it off.
Oh, did they? I thought I got an email from it relatively recently. I think I still get the list rules every now and then.
Yeah, that's frightening. Nobody has posted on that group for several years, intentionally so. And but in all the years that I ran that group, I don't think a single person ever got much of anything out of it. It would get up to a certain level and then it would fall apart. Then it would get up to a certain level, then it would fall apart. And it never got through the first conscious shock, to put it in Enneagram terms. And that was, I'm pretty sure, what my teacher's lesson for me was in having me do that thing.
Is that because, why do you think that is?
Because it's very, very hard to curate a group like that and actually get people who are interested in doing the work. Think about all the trolls we had to deal with all the time.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of one of them.
Nah.
A little bit, tiny bit. Too much Idris Shah.
Too much Idris Shah, yeah.
I did want to ask about travel and how travel and broadening one's horizons tends to, loosen the grips of at least some of the larger belief systems.
It can, but you have to have a willingness beforehand. I mean, think of all the missionaries who have gone traveling and didn't loosen up their belief system a single little bit.
Yeah,
some of them
true.
ruined whole civilizations because of their belief systems.
Yeah.
So again, that depends on the person. So you can go to definitely for me, traveling broadened my horizons. Being exposed to places where people have different ideas and different preconceptions was a really wonderful experience. But if I had been a Catholic priest in the 15th century coming over to America, I might not have felt that way. But yes, all in all, travel is good.
Yeah, good question, John. Thanks.
John's always had good questions. I mean, John may be a troll, but he's the good kind of troll.
Shuri, do you have any thoughts to share?
I was thinking about how people are born into following certain football teams. If you want to take politics out of it, even that, that I happen to follow this team and it's the only team to follow. That sort of thing. You watch how fanatical people get about that, and you watch what happens in the World Cup and soccer football, and you think, oh my God, who are these people? But it's just like a religion. And
yeah, people get killed over those games.
Yeah, people have this very strong need to belong to something, to be recognized for something. And just looking at the way people are talking in the current newsfeed, they really want to be known, but not necessarily for the right things. And so the cult of personality is our thing at the moment, that everybody wants to look a certain way or be perceived that they belong to the most powerful group of something. The norms that we had such a fragile hold on of, you know, generosity and honor and all those sort of things, they're just words. No one's really living that. No one's really honorable. No one's really independent. No one's really actually questioning and thinking independently and saying, hey, don't do that. And the motivation of, is it fear? Or is it always fear, you know, that they don't belong to something? And I just feel really a bit sad about all of that, that people can't think independent and do what my belief system of what is the right thing, you know, to try and uplift someone, to be a person of my word, to be generous of spirit, to play a game not for the winning but for the participation. It just seems like I've been bamboozled by all of this and thinking, wow, how can people believe that what is happening is the right and proper way to conduct oneself? Because you're setting the tone for your future generations, and it's just history repeating itself. Why aren't we actually learning from history? Why aren't we taking a big note and saying, hey, this is actually happening again. We've got to stop it. We can stop it if we wake up. But no one really wants to wake up. They just want to belong to something that looks powerful, makes them feel good in a superficial way.
You know what's the basis of that? The need to be right. When it boils down to the baseline, beliefs are all about being right. Being right is the shield you have against reality. It's the shield you have against your own nothingness. When you can go, I believe that God likes me better than he likes you, and he's going to take me up to this nice place in the sky, and he's going to burn you in this pit in the ground because he likes me better than you. That being right is the essence of it. I mean, what does every belief say? It says, we have the truth. Every religion says, we have the truth, right? The Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims are all the children of Abraham. They all say, we have the truth. They all fight with each other because they say, you don't have the truth. What you're looking at there is a 4,000-year-old family squabble. It's like, Aunt Matilda left you the silverware and she should have left it for me. That's the basis of the Abrahamic religions.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody wants to be right, because if you're right, you're safe. But
Okay,
if you're not right, you're not safe.
Yeah, that goes even deeper then, because then we're talking about the need for safety.
Yes.
The need for reassurance, you know, out of fear, being out of fear, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And also a follow-up to that, which is, I am reminded of the quote, everyone believes they're the good person.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Robert Heinlein said it best. Nobody's a villain in their own eyes.
Well, and those are beliefs that, you know, we all have to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're the villain. I'm the hero. Has to be.
I am a good person. I am a good person when we, you know, you leave out all the stuff that you do that maybe is not so good and that sort of thing. You know it's there, and then of course that creates inner conflict that, you know, you have to shove down and stuff like that, instead of saying, I was a good person for this, one little thing I did one time, but right now I'm just me, I'm neither good nor bad until I do something.
You're doing really well until you add that A into the sentence. If you just stop at I am, you're fine.
Yeah.
So you add the rest of the stuff, it all goes to shit.
Right. When I think, to go back to what you're saying about faith and belief, it seems like the way you describe faith, it kind of springs from, that foundation in being, you know what I mean? And the constant recognition of, the truth of being, as opposed to, mental, the contents of the mind, and
Yeah, exactly that. What he said, everybody. Way to go, John.
1 point for Gryffindor.
Yeah. I thought
Actually, it would be what's the other one? It's not Gryffindor. Ravenclaw.
There you go.
Fun. Palon, did you add what you wanted to add? I wasn't sure. Okay, cool. Ilmar, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, you're very quiet tonight, Ilmar.
Yeah, I was hiding.
You can't hide from us. We look for you.
We need to throw the Enneagram in here. He'll get going.
Well, I guess I'm kind of waiting for the punchline. I mean, the talk was advertised as Dancing with Maya, and I think that's a really important topic. Namely, how do you actually deal with the world? And part of that is, I think I and a lot of other people hold things to be true without having evidence for it. Yeah, and I think that's almost necessarily the case for much of what we believe in. Now, one of the things that us domesticated animals, which are so down upon, have created is social institutions and norms which try to minimize the likelihood of us sticking with beliefs which will turn out to be false. And primary example of that is the development of scientific method and so forth, as a way of interpersonal criticism of our beliefs and stuff. So I guess my real interest is, given that we're going to be living in this world, and given that we're going to be almost of necessity holding things to be true for which we do not have direct evidence, or sometimes even any good kind of evidence, what's the good way of dancing with this?
Yeah, the term was actually dating the goddess Maya, not dancing with her. Dancing with her might be
dancing. So I'll let you date while I'll dance my tango. But it's that question, it seems to be, is our involvement in the world, even though we know it's risky, because we know that many of the things that we hold to be true will turn out to be false, or will turn out to be deleterious. But I will still go to the damn doctor and have him take out what he suspects is a cancer from my scalp. I will still, go have a mechanic fix my.
But dude, that's not part of the illusion.
Well, no, it's based on certain beliefs.
No, the cancer on your head is not based on a belief. It's based on evidence. The doctor looks at it. He takes a sample of it. He looks at the sample under a microscope. He runs tests. And he comes back and he says, this has the appearance of cancer. We should take it off. These cells are cancerous. That's not a belief. That is scientific evidence. That's a different thing. Don't conflate the two.
But my belief in that doctor, that he knows what he's talking about, is to a large extent a belief. Now, I have done a little bit of checking on him, but by and large, I have pretty much on faith that this guy knows what the hell he's talking about,
Yeah, that's on you. I don't do that with doctors. I have a medical background though, so I can tell when a doctor is full of shit.
I certainly did not look at that sample under a microscope or examine it or so forth. Yet I think it was the right thing for me to do, to follow up on that, And I think that's true of a lot of other things that we do in life. That we deal with partial knowledge, you know, and sometimes even with no basis for our beliefs at all, rather other than social mores, you know. And it seems to me that we need to make room for that, and we need to.
Dude, you can have all of that you want. I'm not saying give up on it. If you think about it, you will remember that I have said over and over again, I don't want to take people away from Maya if they like it.
But this is supposed to be a talk about dating Maya or dancing on. What the hell, you know? In other words, for those of us who are still not willing
Yeah,
to.
well, you had certain beliefs on what it was that I was going to talk about. You may be disappointed.
Well, I'm still, as I say, I'm waiting for the punchline here. You know,
you missed the punchline.
All right, maybe so, maybe so. You know.
Yeah. Here's the punchline for you again. If you want to deal with your beliefs, find a belief and ask yourself how you know it's true. If you cannot come up with a decent answer for it, discard that belief for something that works better for you.
Is that actually practical, though, for the whole set of your beliefs? I mean,
so far so good.
I always like the kind of, not to kill the phrase, but a non-dual approach to this, in which I mean, you know, it's not true or false, you know, like Robert Anton Wilson, you know, degrees of truth, you know, this is probably true, this is probably not true. I don't have enough information about this. You know, this is likely true, or this is possibly true.
You left out the most important thing in his multivalent logic, which is this is a game rule.
Right.
So that gets into a whole different thing, because I don't have to believe that a game rule is true. I just have to know that it's a game rule.
Right.
And maybe or maybe not play the game.
Yeah. So I'm a Muslim. If I want to go to a mosque, I have to follow the game rules of going to the mosque. And that includes taking my shoes off, washing my hands, my face, and my feet, going into the mosque in a certain way, sitting in long rows with all the other men, praying in a certain way, all of that kind of stuff. That's game rules. I don't have any beliefs about that. That's just the game rule. And if you want to be a Muslim, you play by the Muslim game rules. If you want to be a Christian, you play by the Christian game rules. If you want to be a member of Heaven's Gate, you play by the Heaven's Gate game rules. And those include drinking some really interesting Kool-Aid.
Well, and we can assume Ilmar's doctor played by the medical school game rules. So, I mean, you know, yeah, you can't know 100% that they're not lying to you. You can get a second opinion, you know, that sort of thing. But I mean, in theory, you know, everything's kind of conditional, you know what I mean, to some extent.
It is, and isn't that really where most of our problems arise? In the conditionality of our knowledge or our belief systems? I mean, there are a few things we can presumably be certain about, and those are the things that we usually find by either going within in some sense or knocking our head against the stone wall, as you suggested at the beginning there. But most of the stuff falls in between. It's stuff that we have.
It falls in between.
Better or worse reasons for believing it. I'm sorry, what?
It falls in between if you let it. Taking the doctor example. So I get a diagnosis. Oh, you have what appears to be a carcinoma on your forehead here. I say, let me see the report. I read the damn tests. If there is something in the test that I don't understand, I look it up. I learn it. I don't need to take it on faith. I'm smart enough to understand what I'm looking at. You're welcome to take your doctor on faith. There has never been a procedure that I have ever allowed myself to undergo where I haven't done that. Every time I get my blood work done, I get it sent to me and I read it over because I have taught myself to understand this. I don't need to take what they say on faith. I can look at the numbers.
And that's in part because you consider medical knowledge to be rather important.
Well, it's also in part because I think my ass is rather important, and I'm going to take care of it.
Right, you know, and I not having examined your ass, I have no opinion on that subject, you know, but your computer, presumably you haven't really paid that much
I
attention.
have built my own computers from the ground up. I used to live in the land of fries, dude.
All right, good enough, good enough. Well, I'll work on find some example of stuff which is important in your life, but you have not really had a mastery of that area, you know. And
You don't need a mastery. You need sometimes just a general knowledge, but you'll be hard put to find this, because I've been doing this for years. If I have something in my life, I pay attention to it. I can tell you how my damn vacuum cleaner works in pretty decent detail if I need to. I don't have a belief that there's magic smoke in my vacuum cleaner that makes the motor make sounds and devours things off my floor. I understand about how to create suction and air vortices and all of this kind of stuff, and how electrical motors work, etc. People should be able to say that they have a general knowledge of the world. I can also change a tire, rebuild a carburetor. I've completely rebuilt automobile engines. Not the modern engines, because they're too damn complicated, but I still understand the basis of how they work. It's just way too much work to do it myself. What's weird is that more people don't do that.
And this generalized knowledge you have of the world is not based on beliefs for which you do not have evidence?
It's based on experience.
Among other things.
You know, you don't need to believe anything to rebuild a carburetor. You just need to take it apart and see how it fits together again. Replace the parts that are busted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ilmar, it sounds like, to your point, there is a limitation to one's knowledge, right? Like I run into this myself a lot. And so it in terms of how to deal with the world, I guess there's just this understanding that if I don't have that level of knowledge that Mishtak was just talking about of something, then yes, I am moving forward because I do have a belief about whatever it is, and I have to take on the risk that my belief is wrong.
Right.
And that those consequences will come and bite me in the ass. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly right. You know? And I think that's where a lot of the intensity of the game essentially comes, is in acting in the face of incomplete knowledge, acting in the face of uncertainty. You know?
Uncertainty is different than belief.
By your term,
Anytime I take a lift into town, I get into that car knowing that there is a possibility that the driver is inept and can get us in a wreck and kill us all.
Or give us COVID, etc.
Yeah, or any of that stuff. That is uncertainty. That's not belief.
okay, but you know, I'm hard pressed to say anything, because by your definition of belief, it's something holding something true for which you have no evidence. So I mean, there's probably very little in normal life that qualifies as that. In the sort of normal sense of belief, of holding something to be true for which you have at best very incomplete evidence, a lot of the things we do are based on belief, including going in that car, because you have a certain expectation that chances are pretty damn.
Man, it's not an expectation, it's understanding probability.
Okay.
Yeah, the word probability was definitely coming up for me there. Like,
yeah,
it's not a blind entering into the vehicle. I mean,
yeah, there is a certain probability that the guy driving is going to make a mistake and run into a telephone pole. Given the route that we're taking, and given what I can see about his driving in the first 2 minutes of the ride, I can say that the probability is very, very low of that. And I'm willing to take the risk. It's not a belief.
Or is that a fancy use of the term probability?
No,
in
it's
this
not. It's a
cover?
mathematical thing.
Because, I mean, you're certainly not taking black and white pebbles out of a bag, you know, and saying out of 10,000.
That's not the only probability that it is. Probability theory is fairly complex.
It is. And I seriously doubt that most people, at least, have that level of complexity of probability theory that they make these probabilistic judgments about whether or not that driver is going to get into the proper place. You know?
Don't know.
You
Don't
may.
care.
I mean, you know, so I'm not.
People are allowed to figure it out any way that they want to. I'm giving you the way to do this without having to believe shit. I mean, you're arguing for belief. That's fine. I'm used to that. You're also arguing for limitation. And I'm used to that.
And your point on that being what? I'm sorry. I guess I'm not following what you're trying to say there.
I'm saying that you get to have those. You get to have belief and limitation.
Okay.
And I'm also saying is that's not the only way to do it. This group is definitely not for people who want to believe things, but for people who would like to free themselves from the chains of belief.
Not everyone's up for that.
Most people are not up for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people take a lot of comfort and reassurance from their beliefs.
Yeah. And you can tell if you look at our subscriptions, we're approaching 200 subscribers. If you look at people who want to give you good beliefs, they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It's a much more popular thing. But I don't care. People are welcome. People should have the nice dreams that they would like if that's what they want. If somebody wants to spend their life dating Maya and having wonderful dreams, more power to them. I am all for it. Some people would rather know the truth, would rather free themselves from the bonds of belief, and would rather answer the question, how can I know what is true? How do I know what is real? Am I awake to reality? Those are the questions we're interested here. This group is not for everybody. I mean, I love groups like, what's her name? Teal Swan. Teal Swan is wonderful.
No.
Yes, she is absolutely wonderful. She is the handmaiden of the goddess Maya. I am all for her because she sits there and she gives everybody good dreams. And
Awesome, what they want to hear.
Service to the world.
And I think we all spend time with Maya from time to time.
You can't not spend time with Maya and live in this world. And
so,
she's the ultimate seductress. It's like you walk down the street and she's right there walking next to you going, hey, don't pay attention to what is. Let me spin this story for you. And most of the trouble in the world right now is because people are not making their offerings to Maya to have good dreams. And so they get bad dreams, like the dream that, oh, your election has been stolen. The country is being taken from you. Those are the bad dreams that you get if you are not nice to Maya. Be good to Maya and have good dreams. Or be awake. Either one. Up to you. I'm good either way. I'm not saying that you have to wake up. Laughing at me.
So Aaron says, I think for some, it's hard to enjoy the dream if they know it isn't real.
Yes, those are the people who hopefully will find their way here, or to various friends of mine who do similar work, who are nicer than I am.
All right. John says, it's the only game in town. LOL. Yep. So, I mean, this stuff is difficult to grapple with. We are very attached to our fantasy of what this life is. And obviously, this is touching on that. And that's okay. But it's definitely something to, like I said before, take note of.
Yeah, it actually speaks so well to this group that we have had so little resistance to this. I was expecting much more of a fight. Of course, they might all just be quietly thinking, the man is an idiot. That's possible. And they might not be wrong. You never know.
So, Maya is a hot babe.
Maya is indeed a hot babe.
And she's got her eyes on you.
She would like to date you. And she likes boys and girls equally.
Dave says her sister is hotter. Oh. Leela. Have you been hanging out with Leela, Dave?
Leela, of course, means the dance.
Mm-hmm. Kid sighting, yes. Children's.
Yeah, Zainab is fun to watch because her son is like swinging on the rings behind her and having a great time.
That does look like fun. I never had those to play with, but I wish I did.
Yeah, those are full-on gymnastic rings, which is kind of he goes and tries to grab them and misses his catch and goes flying across the room.
Fun.
If her microphone was on, we would have probably heard crash, roll, 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 thump, thump.
So Zainab, we haven't heard from you. How are you doing?
I'm enjoying the talk.
Good.
Yeah.
Yay.
So are we crazy? What do you think? You are smart. Tell us.
I just had the question if it's, how do you relate that with identifying and identification in general?
Good question.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because early
Your
on.
beliefs are what
Yeah.
you identify with. Those are the contents of your mind that you look at and go, I am this. I am this belief. I am that belief. I believe this. That's a form of identification.
Mhm.
I am this is of identity.
Yep.
Yeah. So your beliefs don't get a hold of you until you identify with them.
Yeah.
Well, isn't part of your, I watched the self-observation video not long ago, you talked about the bracketing.
Yes.
Instead of saying, you know, I am feeling tension in my right leg while I sit here, you say, oh, you know, tension is felt in the right leg, or John is feeling tension in his right leg. Instead of saying, I am feeling this, you just frame it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yep.
You bracket it.
When I was going through my deep depression and stuff, one way I would cope with that was not I am depressed, but like depressing stuff is arising for me, you know, that kind of thing. Just a way to make it less sticky, less on me, about me, of me. And that made it so much easier to disidentify with it, to make sure that my illness wasn't me. You know, it wasn't illness in the sense that this is me forever. It was more like, this is a situation I can cope with, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that was another big one. Is, and I think this is part of the whole E prime general semantics thing that Mushtaq, you know, got me into, which is, you know, this is, you know, you always put some time on it, like this is how I am feeling, or this is what is being felt right now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's
To
a
say,
huge part of it.
I
Yeah.
am feeling this, which kind of presumes like this is all there is, you know. No, this is just the way you're feeling right now, or yeah,
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Exactly right. Yep.
Yep. I've been doing that a lot lately. The events in my country would like to produce anxiety in me. And this is the government stuff, the COVID, the being basically confined to quarters for months now. 11 months we've been
Mhm.
dealing with this.
Yep.
And so I feel this anxiety attempting to well up. And when that happens, I just sit and feel it. I don't try and stop it. I just do my breath practice and feel the sensations in my body and let it pass through. And then it doesn't last. But things like that will happen to anybody. And the question is, are you awake to the process or not? I could go, oh, I'm anxious. There's the belief. Or I could go, I seem to be experiencing certain sensations in my body. Let me examine those.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And
I was gonna
then
say,
it passes.
yeah, that's another thing that the Adyashanti stuff was good for, was like, okay, I'm feeling something right now. Okay, what does it actually really feel like? What is the feeling? You know, what is the sensation? Where do I feel it in my body? Where, you know, what thoughts are coming up in relation to this? That sort of thing.
Oh yeah, because I mean, even giving it the label anxiety or depression, even if it's not like on stuck to us, even if we bracketed it out, we can go even further with that. Like Mushtaq and you are saying, John, where we describe the sensation of it rather than giving it a label that is really kind of vague ultimately.
Right.
Yeah. And Adi is usually right about these things.
I did tell you thanks for turning me on to him. So
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Mr. Keem has a question.
Yeah. All right. So Mr. Keem asks, I'm feeling that void practice might help with disidentification with things because I put more focus on the void. He's asking if that's legit.
Yeah. And with your focus on the void, then these things just pass through.
Yep.
Well, we've gone for a while.
We have. So to sum up and to tie back to our title, because that's helpful, I suppose. Yeah, Maya is a hot babe. She wants to seduce you. You can have some fun times with her and treat her nicely. You could marry her if you want to. Not all of us are up for that.
And there is nothing wrong with going out on dates with Maya.
Yeah. I definitely go out on dates with Maya from time to time.
Yeah, I've heard that about you.
Yeah. We have some fun times together.
The thing is, if you would like to have something other than belief, there are ways to do that. And the first way is to ask yourself. You might say something like, oh, I'm such a fuck up. And then you ask yourself, well, how do I know that that's true? And you say, well, I always do this. And then you say, always? Have there been
Yeah.
any times when you haven't done this? Well, yeah, most of the time I don't do this, but sometimes I do this. So what's the actual truth of this? And then you keep drilling down in that until you remove all of the power of the belief to control you. It might take a minute. That's okay. Challenge your own beliefs. Be willing to let them go. There are ways to operate in the world without them. And I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, this is complex stuff, and what I'd love for us to think about is just how this relates to what's been happening in the big picture lately. How has that been driven by this, you know, willful, destructive attachment to belief? Like, we are seeing one of the results of that, one of the outcomes of that. What can we learn from observing that? So there we go. All right, that's all I got, Mushtak.
That's all I got too. I feel like we should be singing something like M-I-C-K-I. Like the end of the Mickey Mouse show where we all sign off and do the funny little things. But I'm not going to do that because that would probably violate Disney's copyright and they would send men in suits out to shoot us.
All right, on that friendly note, let's take it easy and say goodnight.
All right, let me switch over to the
Yeah.
you and go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.